decades, during the past 6 decades, our organization grew to become a movement supported by over 10 million people around the world, committed to fight for human rights everywhere and anytime. And in Switzerland, we hope to celebrate this anniversary within a lot of events on activities around our country. So if you are into it, please check out our website and our newsletters for more details. Our website is amnesty.ch. I just want a last quick reminder for everyone. This event will be recorded. So if you don't want to appear on the event after that, just switch off your camera, or else it is possible that your face will be appearing. So without further ado, let me introduce our guests. It's a great pleasure to have you here tonight, Aziz and Maria. Maybe you want to do a quick hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Great, nice to have you tonight here. I start with you, Aziz. Abdul Aziz Muhamat is a compelling and tireless advocate for human rights and refugee rights. He has experimented firsthand the limbos of Australia in human policy on offshore detention. He has spent many years in Papua-Neuguinea on Manus Island. He will tell us about his story and his fight for refugees and asylum seekers on Manus Island. And he raised his voice in order to allow them to leave the island and be resettled in safety and security. In 2019, Aziz is a laureate of the Martin-Ennals Award for Human Rights Defenders for this tireless work on behalf of his fellow detainee. Aziz is now living in Geneva, Switzerland, and I feel very privileged to having you on tonight. I'm really looking forward to talking with you. Maria Serrano is senior campaigner on migration for Amnesty International over to our secretariat in London. She's covering Europe, and also I'm very thrilled to hear your expert point of view on the decriminalization of migrant. Thank you so much for being here, Maria, tonight. We are going to start with you, Aziz. Welcome, very nice to have you on. I'm sure that we all want to hear your story. Can you tell us a little bit more about your journey and on your time on this island, please? The floor is yours.
Well, I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you very well.
Everyone. First of all, let me say thank you very much for having me, and I'm so grateful and honored to be part of this, the 60th anniversary of Amnesty International. And we all know this, the role of Amnesty International in our world and in our daily life as well, and as an activist. So we live and we survive based on any platform that we get from Amnesty International so that we can raise our voice. So with that saying, I would like also to start with my personal story. I know some of you may heard about me and some not, but for those who haven't heard about me, I just want to give you briefly about myself. My name is Abdul Aziz Muhamat, as the moderator has already raised it out, and I was born and raised in Sudan. So in particularly in a place called Darfur. So Darfur, just for those of you who haven't heard about Darfur, Darfur is located in the west part of Sudan. And Darfur is a place, I think, is one of the regions that has got, a conflict, and which is an ongoing conflict. And if I'm not mistaken, it started all the way from 1993, I think, the day, or maybe 1993. And it's just got worse and worse after 2003. And that was the moment when the nightmare turned to like a reality. We heard about the problems every day and like every night of our life. But I mean, on that day of 2013, things turned out to be the reality. And that was a genocide. So I think I was, I was a kid. I can remember like every detail of genocide, and I don't think even I want to remember that. And I don't even, I don't even have it like a great memory to remember that, because all my memory has been wiped out by, my incarceration, or like my imprisonment on Manus Island detention center. But part of the reason why I left Sudan, initially, it's not because of the, not because of the genocide. No, after the genocide, we want to stay in a country where we could raise our voice, we could speak about our, our parents who heard about it, who saw, who witnessed firsthand of the experience of genocide. So we want to testify in front of everyone. But again, we have to remember that, age is one of the a major role. Based on my age, we were not allowed. So if you are a minor, you're not allowed to testify, but you have to be to an age of like 18. But then to testify in a country where the same government who have committed that atrocity, it's going to be a nightmare again. So you have to find a safest place where you can express yourself freely, and people could hear your story. I participated in several campaigns as a political campaigner on early age. I think if I'm not mistaken, 15 years old. I was outspoken in every school meetings and every, gathering that we do. We used to have it outside. I used to speak, and, I had sort of like a gift, which is, learning language or speaking multiple of language very easier. So that gift helped me out to speak in front and in public, and especially like in English, to express myself. And it helped me a lot. Initially within Sudan, but then it turns to like a nightmare after I became, an adult. So, after 18 years old, I think the law is no longer going to protect you. So you're going to be hunted by those, the dictatorships. And born in a country where it's ruled by a dictator, you always have to see any activist who try to, speak up, he will either end up in a jail or dead, or you have to zip your mouth. You have three options: either zip or jail, or you die. So I think for me, I was one of the people that I decided not to zip and not to die, but to stay alive, so that I can tell my story, to have this sort of opportunity and platform to share my story. Left the country in 2013, heading to a direction that I've never heard of it, Indonesia. And I know many of you today can ask me, like, why Indonesia? Why not Europe? Why not any other country? But the fact that, Sudan government is one of the government that has got a tie. If I say Sudan government, not the current government, but the former government, has got a very good bilateral relationship with all the neighboring country. So which means if you end up in any neighboring country, tomorrow or the next day, you will be sent back to Sudan again. And then the only options to save yourself and you can speak freely is you have to get out from one continent to another continent, which I did it. And I did it with the purpose to stay in Indonesia. Arrived in Indonesia in July 2013, alone, first time in my life to get out of the country, and shock. But luckily that I speak English, and I had also a tip from my uncle. So that tip helped me out to figure my way out. Spending 3 months in Indonesia. During my 3 months, I have been only given 1 month's visa to stay in Indonesia. And that 1 month's visa, it's nearly done. And I felt like I'm running out of visa, and I don't have a right to reapply again for a visa. So what option do I have? Two options. One option is I have to find a nearest country on the planet, and either to fly or to do whatever it takes to get there, or I have to be returned back to the country where I will get, I will face a prosecution and jail, maybe for life sentence. So the option that I decided, like I refuse to be treated or to be, held as a hostage or prisoner in Sudan. So I decided to seek for an option. And then first things come to my mind, and the first closest country to Indonesia was Australia. But the question is, we need to ask ourselves, how do you get there? And to get there is you have to make sure that fear, it's not a great weapon for you to use in that moment. The only things that you could use is the determination. The desperate, you have to be a desperate, and you have to use your determination. By that, you can overcome your fear, and you can get in whatever, even if like in a stick that can help you out to get out of the ocean, you have to jump on it, because we are looking for that small hope. And I tried my first attempt, which to get on the ocean, and first time in my life to get on that Indian Ocean. I mean, I've seen the Red Sea, but Indian Ocean, it's only something that I read about it and I heard about it, but I have never in my life tried to get on the boat to just cross. And I thought it was a ship at the first time, but it turns out to be a boat, a rickety boat. I mean, that boat, I mean, 48 hours in the middle of oceans, you have nothing except the dolphin and the shark. They are your best friend. They are your family, so they can keep you company. And I was so lucky that I met a friend who's, I had a friend who's like a dolphin kept me a company. And I think I tried a couple of times. First time I didn't succeed to get to Australia. Second time I tried, I've been intercepted by the Australian immigration. And there is another chapter of history has started.
Hey, thank you so much. I like how you speak about your determinations. And can you tell us, where did you landed after this trip? When you had this encounter with the Australian migration policy government?
Well, I mean, after we have been intercepted, that first thing, I mean, it comes to my mind, I was an interpreter. I mean, they picked me up first, first person from the boat to the ship. As an interpreter, I have to interpret for everyone on that boat. We were roughly about 54 people, children. I mean, we have a children, we have a woman, so I have to interpret for everyone. Despite, I mean, I spent like 5 days in the ocean. I mean, I was so tired and not less sleeping and dizzy, and and I had sort of like a seasickness at that time. I mean, but I've been forced to interpret. I mean, and interpreted, and after the interpretation is in, they tell us that we are gonna send you to Manus Island. But the main idea, not from there to send us directly to Manus Island. The idea was to keep us on the boat, I mean, on that ship, which is a patrolling ship. And they want to return us back to Indonesia because they have already started to, an agreement with Indonesia to return people back. But then what happened was there's only, couple of, one of the oldest women, she was with us on the boat and she had a heart attack. And I have to be there as an interpreter, staying all night with her. And then in the morning, they said like, look, she's not gonna make it. We have to just look for a nearest, harbor to, to just disembark these people. So the nearest harbor was a Christmas Island. We sent to Christmas Island. We say thanks to that young lady. She's survived now. She's still alive. But again, for us, it was still unknown. The story is still unknown. Where we're gonna go from Christmas Island is still unknown. Christmas Island is one of the chapters. But to give you an idea about a Christmas Island, if you look, in a Google, you can just type it in a Google and say Christmas Island Detention Center. It's been built, that detention center, all the way back in 2001. And that detention center, the architecture of that detention center, I think is the same architecture of their Guantanamo Bay. Because in that detention center, you have, 3 meters fence high, you have the cameras, people are controlling you. And to extend that, even in the restroom, you have a camera. So which means there is no way, there's no privacy at all, because in their perception that they think either people will jump out of that place or people will do something stupid to get out of that detention center. So the point is to make it as harder as possible and to make it as worse as possible so that we can be able to send a message back to the people. Again, spending few weeks in there, they decided again, Manus and Nauru comes to a list. And that's another story of Manus Island and Nauru. Different life, different continent. Same continent, different country, another life. And the real atrocity started after we landed on Manus.
Yeah, because you guys didn't commit any crimes, right? And you were deported on this island. How can our listeners imagine the living condition that you had to endure on this place?
The reality is that in a Western liberal, countries, like democratic countries, you don't need to commit a crime in order to end up in a detention center. Because they have a power, they have a wealth, they have, they have their own word to say in front of, any condemnation from any human rights organizations. And if I can give you an example, Australia and Europe, I mean, it's just going. Even when I say Europe, I'm not taking the entire continent, but even if we can pick out few countries in the continent, you don't need to be, I mean, criminals. The crime is when you get on the boats. That's the crime. There's no other crimes. Despite it's not, under that, I mean, a 1951 convention, it's illegitimate for everyone to get to a country, to seek asylum in a country. But based on each, I mean, democratic interpretation, it's a different things. That's a crime because you are entering my border without a visa. Again, if to talk about the condition on Manus Island, I mean, to be honest, whatever I say or whenever, I mean, whatever I say or whatever I tell you from my story, it's not going to be enough. I mean, because this is not a story of one night. This is a story of 6 years. And if that 6 years, we do an accumulation of, I mean, from one day to a week, from a week to a month, from a month to a year, 12 months. And then it's times, 6. And every day has a different test, has a different story, and every day has a different atrocity. All I can say, Manus Island, it's a, number one, it's worse than a prison. Manus Island Detention Center is worse than prison. Manus Island Detention Center, it's even worse than Guantanamo. And if whoever heard about Guantanamo and how the prisoners been treated there, they've been treated even more nicely than us who we've been treated there. Number one, on Manus Island, as an individual, you don't have a name. You don't have a name, you have a number. And I can tell you that I have a number. My names, I've never heard my names in the last 4 years or 4.5 years, except after I start being, after I start speaking up on the media and I reveal myself on the media, then the journalists start calling my name. And I always sort of forget to sense that during the interview, I call my number before my name, because it is like a systematically torture to extend that it erases all your memory and it puts some memory of atrocity in there. The accommodation in general, in terms of accommodation, they haven't built an accommodation the times that when we've been sent there. We've been forced to live in a weapon storage or like a hangar during the World War II. These are the buildings which exist from the World War II. And it used to be a building for an artillery, not for the soldiers to sleep in there. But we were being forced to sleep in there. You know why? Because we were not considered as a human. That's the first thing. Because in Australia, there are several words, word that is being used to describe me as this. First of all, queue jumper. Second of all, cockroach. Stink trash bag. And then the last, it's like a prisoners. This is all the things that, and we were hoping to be a prisoners because in a prison, you have a sentence based on the crimes that you have committed. You will be sentenced to a certain period of time. And in that time, you could do something to keep yourself busy. But in Manus, it's completely not. It's like a blank page. You have a book, which is a blank page. And that page hasn't written anything in the page except when the sun rises and then when the sun goes down. That's the same thing. But you never know what happened in between. And the only things that people could do in that place is, one, you wake up from your bed, join the queue. And if you don't join the queue, you don't get to eat. If you don't join the queue, you don't get water to drink. If you don't join the queue, you get treated like an animal. They can come and drag you out of your rooms. Overall, despite all of that, we accept it and we live with it. But we never say that we want to stay there for the rest of our life. So we decided to stand up and speak about it. And then the punishment start getting harder and harder on us, which end up like the water's being cut off, medical facilities being cut off, like food, it hasn't been supplied. We've been forced to smuggle things from outside in order to survive. And we were survivors. We were survivors in a land where it's not even exists on the planet.
Yeah, it's crazy touching what you're saying to us now. And you were one of these driving motors, the voice that has to be heard within the facility. You were giving hope to people and act with positiveness. What did you see there? How can you tell us what it does to a person to be stuck in such a place for just a blank page in front of you without any sentence, without any end date?
To be honest, what it does to any human being who's stuck on Manus Island, I think I can say, um, imagine, let's just imagine both of us, all of us here in this, in this event. Imagine you are, you throw a meat in a land where, in a land where there's nothing exists around that land. What would you expect out of that meat to come out? The meat will stay there, but either that meat will rot and then it stings, and then it gets to a point that where it's no longer going to exist. Manus Island, what it did to people, it's something that I cannot even tell you in a word. I can't find any word to describe it initially, but I can say, people have been completely traumatized. People have been tortured, traumatized, and to extend that they start losing their memories. And let's imagine one thing I can say. Let's just imagine one thing I can say. People got to a point that suicide attempt, and what else? The suicide attempt and the self burning down, cutting themselves. It's become one of the daily routine. Every single day we used to experience 5 to 6 men who communicate with themselves. You know why they do that? Because it's not they are looking for attention, because they have nowhere to go. They have no place to stay. They have nowhere to go. And they thought that their life, it's just gonna end there. And that's it. That's the only things that I can say about Manus Island, because it's gonna take me back. It's gonna take me back, and it led me to sort of like bring some of the old memories. It's not personally me, it's not bothering me, but I am only just concerned about the reactions of the people in this event, because it's not something that's very easy. Someone can just go over it and you can describe it within a few minutes or 3 minutes. But overall, I can say it has destroyed 15 men's life. 15 men's life have no longer exist. We have their numbers and names, but they no longer exist. And for those who exist, I think I can say they 2 out of 10, they have a permanent injuries, and 2 out of 10 they are surviving under a psychiatric drugs, which means you have to take a heavy dose of mental health, antidepressant and all other those things to stay alive.
Yeah, I can only hardly imagine. Can you tell us how you get out? And now you are recognized refugee status in Geneva, and how did you manage to come here and apply for asylum? And maybe I'd like to remind you that we have people interpreting us, so maybe make some breaks between the sentences. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I need to just break down the sentence for the interpreters. Well, regarding to your question, how did I get out of detention? I think I can say it's a miracle. Maybe an angel just dropped in Manus and picked me up. I think when I start my journey as an activist, and I took the risk, and I told everyone that I'm gonna be in front and I will take the bullet, and I would be like a shield to protect anyone behind me. So what happened was, I was thinking of a way that to send the voice, first of all, but also I was very well prepared mentally and physically for any punishment gonna come to my way. Any consequences gonna come to my way. I was very well prepared for that. Then I end up in prison, and I spent 1 month in a prison with the prisoners, local prisoners. I spent 2 months in a solitary confine, and that was only the punishment of speaking out. It's the punishment of revealing the truth of Manus Island, because people in Australia, they don't even know what is Manus Island. In their perception, and based on the government's, statements every day we see on the media, it's Manus Island is the 5-star hotel. That's all how people, they can imagine. No one is gonna imagine that what is behind that 5-star hotels. And that's the perception of Australian people. Then for me to get out of that place, I was recognized. And in order to be recognized as a genuine refugee, I mean, I had that recognition in 2015 on Manus Island. And I had no way to go. As a genuine refugee, I had no way to go. So I stayed there for quite a while. And like 4 years after 2015 until 2019, end of 2018, I've received a phone call from a foundation by the name of Martin-Ennals Award. So it's one of the foundations, it's a Swiss-based foundation. And in collaboration with the 10, international organizations, Amnesty, Human Rights Watch, Human Rights Law Center, and many other, I can list it. The list will go on and on. The director called me and she told me that you have been nominated for an award as a human rights defender. I mean, to be honest, for me, awards, nomination, it doesn't change the situation. I mean, that was the reality for me, because what I want is an effective change on the ground. That was I was looking for, because I had like more than 6 or 7 awards that I won because of the Messenger podcast that I created. It hasn't changed the situation. So when I heard about that, I was like, okay, fine. My reaction was very simple. And he was shocked to point that why your reaction is so, just very normal. I mean, people were so thrilled when they hear about that. And I was like, you don't know my situation. So in order to know more about my situation, you need to read more about me, Google Manus Island Detention Center, and you can judge me based on what I say. I mean, a few months later, again, he called me and he said, look, I'm deeply sorry. And I just want to, extend that this is going to be extending. And if we can walk out with the Swiss government and Australian government and other, and UN in between to get you out of the island, will you be happy to get out? And I say, look, if there's any way I can get out of that detention center today, before even, if there's any way I can get out of that detention center, I will hope to get out today, not even tomorrow. And 2019, mid-February of 2019, I've got a guard came to my room, handed over, a piece of paper which says it's an authorization from both Australian Minister of Immigration and Home Affairs, and the authorization from a Minister of Immigration of Papua-Neuguinea. And on top of that, and a statement, which is, or like attestation from a Swiss government. And that's all I got. And I was left alone and then told me just go and hop on the plane and go. It was shock being locked up in a place for 6.5 years or 6 and few months. And then you just been left alone. And then they ask you to go from one continent to another continent again. And that's another another experience. Well, first, I did not even expect that's going to be true. But then when I saw myself at the airport, I got on the plane, still I'm not believing. And the only moment that I told myself this is a reality, the moment when I've landed in Geneva International Airport, and I got out of that airport and I said, like, this is a real, I'm not really in dream, like I'm not dreaming, this is a real. And that's how even I get here. But to ask myself, until today, I'm still questioning myself, how did I get there? I can tell you, many people, who are, some of them were present in here in this event, they have played a major role. And the only I can say, I haven't seen that petition, except when I go to Swiss, I've seen a petition that's put out by Amnesty International. So I'm grateful to, everyone who have participated, and to all those people who have signed on that petition, and even they have raised their voices.
I have the chills. Thank you so much, Aziz, for sharing with us. Let me over to you, Maria. You are an Amnesty expert on human rights migration policy. What are your thoughts and reaction when you hear Aziz's testimony?
Thank you, Romain, and thank you everyone for being here. And thank you to Aziz for his struggle, the inspiration as well, the resilience, the determination to survive and to be a voice. That's really impressive. And I think that for us, for Amnesty, having you here and, trying to support human rights defenders is part of the core work we need to do and continue doing. So it's really, it's really terrible hearing this story, but at the same time, it feels like, activism, raising our voice, really sometimes work and can help, to raise awareness about terrible situations like the one that you have unfairly suffered. So I wanted, after listening to you, I wanted to share a few remarks, although obviously there is nothing more powerful than your personal story and experience. But I'm gonna speak from the point of view of, the policy and why the system of abuse of thousands of human beings like you are happening in Australia, but also elsewhere in Europe. So I wanted to emphasize a few things. Like, one is the immense suffering that this system, this abusive system that deliberately punishes people seeking protection. I mean, this is terrible. So there is a lot of harm, a lot of trauma, a lot of mental health problems that most of the time are created by political decisions, because leaders make decisions that actually harm people like you. So this is one of the main trends that we see across the world, also in Europe and in Australia. Another thing that I wanted to emphasize is this system of offshore detention, because countries are more and more trying to keep refugees and migrants out at any cost, and no human cost can repair. Like, they don't realize how much suffering they are creating. But basically, this system of offshore detention that you spoke about in Manaus, that also exists in other islands, is in fact an attack to the refugee regime, to the rules, to the international rules, to the right to seek asylum. And this is accompanied as well by measures that are pushing people back, pushing boats back, and sometimes putting people in danger. And we see this also in the Central Med. But, as I said, these are measures and political decisions that are putting the protection of borders before the protection of people. And that's something that we cannot accept. Another thing that I wanted to remark is that these attacks to the rules that we have to protect people like you, Aziz, is obviously creating a space in the world in which the protection space is more and more reduced, because many countries like Australia are trying to transfer the responsibility to protect and assist refugees to other, usually poor countries. And they use also the money, the resources, the relationships to basically, shift this responsibility to other countries. But what we see, in fact, is that in practice, these decisions create systems of cruelty and neglect, and very harsh detention regimes that, as you said, end up breaking people and creating a lot of trauma. Obviously, one question is, how is this possible? And I think that you mentioned very important things when you said, how, refugees like you or people like you are stigmatized, and sometimes, this starts with stigmatization. This starts with creating this sense of insecurity, putting names to refugees and migrants and dehumanizing refugees and migrants, and trying to convey this perception that refugees and migrants are a danger for society, for nations, for countries. And in this context, many of these policies are justified. So I think that we also need to be aware about, about how governments start stigmatizing, and how this is the first step into a process that leads to the dehumanizing of people. And obviously, like, there are further steps in this dehumanization. So the fact that then when you are in a center, you are no one, you have no name, you are just a number, you have to queue for absolutely everything. This is something unbearable. And that's one of the purposes of these decisions as well, to make life unbearable for refugees and migrants. So people are deterred from even trying to seek protection. So these are some of the things that I wanted to remark. But also, in addition to these, I wanted to emphasize that obviously in Amnesty, we believe that freedom is the default condition for everyone. So detention is wrong in itself. And as you said, you know, we have people in countries like Australia, but also obviously like in Europe as well, that are detained for no crime, and just because they are seeking protection, because they are seeking asylum. And we have to reiterate that seeking asylum is a human right. That is, it is not a crime, that no one should be punished just for seeking a better life for themselves, for seeking to live in safety and security. So I think this is an important and a very important point. And the last thing I wanted to remark as well, obviously in your story, you know, you have chosen to be a voice, to speak up from, you know, from your childhood, and this is something really amazing. And the fact that many human rights defenders like you, many of them are refugees and migrants too, are punished just because they speak up. So, you know, we are seeing as well how governments are trying to silence critics, and how, you know, even your conditions in detention worsen because you decided to denounce the horrible abuses. But at the end of the day, raising your voice, even if it had an enormous cost, was one of the things that probably let people know how bad the situation was. And, you know, like, it also allowed you to make many connections with people elsewhere. And I think that, you know, given that these policies try to really dehumanize people and break the connections with others, you know, raising our voices and showing solidarity and speaking up is a very important strategy in order for us to really try to dismantle these cruel policies.
Thank you very much, Maria. And if I might just ask you, you said that there is similarities in Europe and there is similarities all around the world with these policies. Aziz, you have been an observer on camps in Lesbos. Do you see any similarities on these camps in Lesbos, in Greek, that you have seen in your own experience in Papua-New Guinea?
In terms of a similarity, before I go to this, I mean, I go to the point of similarity, I also just want to indicate that the cost, I mean, the human cost for having an offshore detention center like Manus Island. And I know, I mean, most of you here as a listener, you're gonna freak out if I say the number. I mean, it costs roughly about, $8.3 billion just to keep, I mean, 3,127, I mean, men and women and children in offshore detention center like Manus and Nauru. And if we took that, I mean, sum of money and we divide it into each individual will cost roughly 3.4 million from the period of 2014 to 2020. So me as this, like, I'm here in Geneva today speaking to you, that I have cost the Australian government 3.4 million for the period of time that I was detained on the island. And no one knows how much I cost for one day. Imagine one day I cost $9,305. That is the figure that is the cost, the human cost for the immigration to have an offshore detention center in place like Manus Island and Nauru. And all that amount of money have been expended to punish people. Nothing else. This is only a punishment. You spend the money in order to punish people. There's nothing else you can use for that money. And I'm sure that if that money has been invested in a different ways, like in a places where people are really running out from the danger, I think it will save many people's lives rather than only 127 men. And even among this number, you haven't saved them. You have lost 15 of them. And then on top of 15 of them, you have others who are completely dismantled. Let me say, mentally, they are done. Physically, they are done. They have like a permanent injury. Again, when it comes to the similarity between offshore and offshore Manus Island and Nauru, then Lesbos Island, let's be honest and be realistic. I've been to Lesbos. I spent 1 week inside Lesbos. I've observed one after another, participated in several, couple of protests, then volunteer inside. To be honest, Europe, it's trying to replicate exactly what Australia did. With that saying, exactly what Australia did. But Europe is turned out to be even worse than Australia in that context. Australia has provided us with the old building, which is the Second World War building. But in Europe, buildings are not exist. You have to find like an olive tree in order to bundle up the ground and to sleep on that. I think I've seen that with my eyes. And I think first day when I got there, I was shocked. And the shocking got me, I thought myself at the beginning that I don't have a weakness point. But when I got to Lesbos, I discovered my weakness. As an activist, we all have a weakness. I've been looking for my weakness when I was on Manus, except I found it on Lesbos. Because I wasn't expecting that I'm in Europe. I asked myself 3 times, am I in Europe or am I somewhere else? If I'm in Dabab in Kenya, I can say, yes, this is a Kenya, and I know like the corruption there, and I know what is happening. Or if I'm in Jordan, I can say I'm in Jordan. But what happened to Europe? Europe is really heading to a way that, will destroy the entire reputation of this old continent, this continent that which is known as a home basis for a human right. That name, it's just gonna be, it's gonna disappear. And if we all as an activist don't stand up and share what we heard and the figure and the cost of human lives and the money, I think we're gonna head to a places where we don't even want it to go there.
Maria, when you hear that putting people in centers costs so much money and doesn't solve any problems, and that Europe is following the tracks of Australia, how do you react to this?
I can just agree with Aziz, because basically the money that, for instance, European countries spend on detention, or even in the border agency, the European Union border agency to control the borders, is immense, and is growing. So, but I think that there are, as he said, many commonalities as well and also in the way Europe is going to. So the one thing that I want to highlight is obviously Australia and Europe share the same purpose. They want to keep refugees and migrants out at any cost. And then the policies that they implement are about outsourcing, like shifting responsibility to third countries, deterrence, making lives unbearable, and the third point is containment and detention. These are 3 very, very clear pillars. And sometimes these policies are justified under the guise of, oh, we are saving lives. For instance, what Europe is doing in the central Mediterranean is saying, oh, we need to save lives. And for that, we are going to make an agreement with Libya, and we are going to you know, like in a way empower the Libyan Coast Guard to basically intercept refugees and migrants and return them to abuses like detention, torture, rape, and killings and enforced disappearances in Libya. So, you know, there is this element of, you know, like, making dodgy deals with the countries to basically, for these countries to control Europe's borders. But another thing that, you know, that Aziz mentioned is these awful conditions in the Greek islands. It's incredible that in one of the richest, you know, blocks, the rich block in the world, people are living in tents. And they are not living in tents because there is, you know, there is an increase in the number of people arriving. Like right now, the numbers have dropped in comparison to 2015. But right now, people are living in tents because there is there is this purpose of making their lives impossible. And it's unbelievable that people have to, you know, live in the mud, that they cannot offer, you know, education, food, hot water. They cannot offer their children a future. So there is this, and in addition to this, there is also the decriminalization of solidarity, because not only governments are failing and are, you know, failing to protect refugees and migrants, they are also punishing those who are trying to support and assist refugees and migrants. And we are seeing in Europe how, you know, human rights defenders, activists, NGOs are being punished just for standing in solidarity, for giving food and water, for assisting other people in need. So we are seeing how solidarity is put on trial, and how now asylum seekers are also facing charges just for seeking asylum. We have a few cases. So these are very, very concerning trends. And I hope that we will have the opportunity to introduce also the case of the Liblu 3, which is a case that of 3 asylum seekers that are facing life sentences in Malta just for, you know, standing up for their lives at sea. But I leave this here for the moment.
Thank you very much. Aziz, now you're since become an outspoken advocate for refugees' rights, and you are very, very engaged, and you actually always been very, very engaged. Can you tell us about your current project as an activist, maybe?
Well, I mean, currently, I have one of the major projects that I've been working on it with the Australian local human rights and the civil society in Australia. So the main project that I have right now is we wanted to do our best to get the remain of people who are still on Manus Island, still are in Papua New Guinea and on Nauru. So I mean, roughly we have about 137, men still stuck in Papua New Guinea capital, which is Port Moresby. And also we have roughly about 300 plus, people stuck on Nauru. So what we did was we knew that the Australian government, they have closed the door and they threw away their, the key. So we were thinking of finding different countries where they can extend their hand and take some few peoples. So we end up in Canada. Canada has one of the genius and generous, an offer which it calls a private sponsorship. So that private sponsorship, it allowed 5 citizens as a Canadian, they come together and then they hire a lawyer, and they hire a lawyer, and then they get the name of the person who was stuck on Manus Island or Nauru to come to Canada under that private sponsorship. So far, we had 6 people successfully end up in Canada. And also we still have 140 on the way. And each, I mean, every individual, it will cost, I think, 18,000 Canadian dollar to get one person. And with that thing, we are not talking about the limit of time. Sometimes depends, 6 months, 8 months. But again, we have also, we don't forget that the COVID has stopped everything. Because if it's not a COVID, roughly we will have all these people like right now in Canada, because we have a very, I mean, the Australian people as a citizen, we work with them in a different level. Because when the government decided not to fix or to solve the problems, we jump up to the people so that to make sure that it is your responsibility, because you are the one who are voting for these people. Then to hold them accountable for what they are doing, you need to collaborate with us. So they start collaborating with us. Australian Overseas in the United States, they set up a local NGO in the US, which is called ADAP. And that local NGO have raised, I mean, enough money right now as we speak. We have raised enough money that can solve the major problem, the remain problem which we have in Papua-New Guinea, on Manus Island and Nauru. And on top of that, I also have started, I mean, I'm doing an internship currently with a global detention project, which we do some tracking on the detention centers and see where and their conditions and that. And also currently a student at the Geneva University. So finishing my, I mean, on the way to start my second year.
Wow, lots of bread on your planche, you say in French, you know, beaucoup de pain sur la planche, a lot to do, right? Wow, crazy. Hey, we certainly seen that Europe is heading down the road that it should not. I am deeply touched for what you say, guys. If you want to give messages to the government of European countries and the European Union, what would they be? Maybe we start with you, Aziz, and then Maria, you can say yours.
Well, I have a very simple message. I mean, first, one of my messages, we have to stop the criminalization of the activists and the asylum seekers. This is my first message. We have to stop this criminalization. And second message, and which is very important, is we need to study more about what happened in Australia before we hit that road. Because what happened in Australia, Australia has spent, I mean, billions of dollars to hide it. In terms of, I mean, in a public media, you don't get to read exactly the details of what happened word after word. So in order for us to understand what happened is we need to learn more and more, do deep research, speaking to people like the victim. I hate to say that word. They are not victim, but I can, again, I can't find any other word in English to describe them. So again, I can include myself, we are victim. To speak with the victim just to make sure that their experience can be accounted. And then based on their experience, we can build our perception. And then third of all, I mean, we have to keep the reputations of this continent. Any messing around with that reputation of the continent, I think it's gonna affect not only Europe, but I mean, US, it's already done. I mean, it's been affected, US is done. I mean, what I'm thinking about is it's gonna hit all the way to Scandinavia, and then it will destroy even Canada. So those are the three messages that I have. And I think together we will be able to get our voice to that place.
And for you, Maria?
Yes, I cannot but agree very much with what Aziz said. Yeah, I think that defending the right to seek protection, to seek asylum is crucial. Also, like stopping the criminalization of solidarity. And in this particular case, I just want to invite everyone as well to think about the 3 boys of Eli Blue 3. As I said, these are 3 boys that are facing life in prison in Malta just because they opposed, you know, an illegal return to Libya. They were rescued in the middle of the Central Mediterranean by a vessel that wanted to return them to Libya. But when they tried to persuade the captain that they couldn't go back to Libya because they were going to suffer abuses, they head towards Malta. And then in Malta, the authorities in Malta charged them with very, very serious charges that could carry life sentences in prison just because they try to save their lives. And they are very young. these guys are, you know, they just want to study, to work, to to watch and play football because they love that, and they have a lot of dreams. And I think that Europe should do much better rather than, you know, criminalizing those ones that are trying to survive and seek protection. So please, everyone, just you know, bear this in mind, because, you know, anything you do for them is very, very meaningful for three boys that feel really neglected and forgotten, that have you know, a terrible fight ahead as well.
Thank you very much, both of you, for these statements, and we will come back to this El Hiblu 3 case. We have a petition right now in Amnesty Switzerland and Amnesty International, so I hope we can all join our forces to make an impact. Now I am handing it over to you, Fabienne, because I've seen some question in the chat, and some people ask some question as well when they were signing up for this event. So the floor is yours, Fabienne.
Yeah, thank you very much, Romain. Just to explain a little bit how this is going to work, basically we collected questions to the speakers through a type form, which was basically also how people signed up for this event. I'm going to ask some of these questions myself, but I'll also give the mic to Peter and Shireen, who both have asked a question, and both have asked two very interesting questions in the chat. So first of all is a question that was submitted through the type form. It's a very interesting one because it's quite a philosophical one. And it basically asks, it's a question to Aziz, and it asks that in a system where people are numbers and in systems that are created to break people, what is human dignity in these systems? And what does human dignity mean to you as a survivor? And there's kind of a follow-up question to it, which is how, or like, is Europe able to provide refugees with that sort of human dignity, and what would human dignity for refugees mean? So it's quite a long one. You can pick and choose, Aziz.
Thanks, Fabiana, for the question, and for the person who has asked the question as well. I mean, I believe it's a quite philosophical question, but let me say, I mean, when it comes to dignity, I think I have to just, I mean, clarify it a bit. When I found myself on Manus Island, I have two options. Option number one, either to fight for my dignity and the dignity of everyone on that place, or option number two, to fight for the freedom. Then I chose to fight for the dignity. And the dignity is, I decided to smuggle a phone inside. And that phone, I start using the phone in order to raise some voice of everyone who is stuck on that place on Manus Island in Nauru. And at the same time, giving them, I mean, you know, giving them their dignity back, because their dignity has been taken away, and which exactly replace it by a number. I mean, the atrocity that we have received and we endorse or we experience on that place, it lead us to a point that we have completely forgot about the freedoms. We were not, for that entire 6 years, we chant every day freedom, but we don't take it as serious as we take our dignity seriously, because we're from 15 different countries. 15 different countries. We have, I mean, Middle East, Asia, and we have a few of Africa, and different cultures. We found ourselves in a place which is a very, very small place, in a size of, I mean, let me say, I mean, Young Boys Stadium or Geneva Stadium. This is the size of place where we found ourselves. And we were 1,600 men. So the question was, we fought so hard for that. And we pay not only one price, but we pay even 6 years or like 8 years of our life in order to get our dignity. And our dignity helped us to get the freedom. So again, to come to the second question in terms of, I mean, Europe, I think we have to be honest. I mean, if we go back through the history, we know that how Europe Europe made a mistakes, I mean, back in the days. And they decided to fix their mistake by signing that convention, by bringing that convention, 1951 convention, and apologizing to the victims of that, I mean, atrocity. Then they kept that convention as if, you know, they took it as seriously. They oblige and they respect their obligation and manner until all up to, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 2000, I think 12 or maybe 2013, some countries, they start hesitant a bit about their responsibility, whether to keep it or not. And then when you lash your responsibility, what happened is you are no longer gonna respect the dignity of every individual. And that's exactly what we witness. I mean, what happened in Hungary, all the way people are crossing the border from Syria, coming all the way to Germany. We have seen what the atrocity on the way. And that is the consequences of people who are really living their responsibility, and human dignity is no longer exist. So as a matter of fact, let's say what we see today, it can give us an example and we can learn from it that human dignity, it's, for some Western liberal country, it is not an important element. That I have to say honestly, it's not an important element. Only for people who believe like us, we always fight for it. And I believe every activist in this event, he's fighting for that dignity of the people who are kept in Libya or Australia or UK or any other places in a caravan as well.
Thank you very much, Aziz. I think the second question is kind of linked. It's a question by Peter. Peter, would you like to ask your question yourself?
No, you can ask it for me, please.
Okay, so well, Aziz briefly mentioned about the cell phone that he smuggled in, and I think that has some part to play in the next question. The next question is, well, how did the world and how did Amnesty learn about Aziz while he was in on Manus Island? And how were you able to get your voice out first and also heard? Can you maybe tell us a bit how that worked?
Well, when I started that, I mean, campaign or the activism inside the detention center, I was anonymous. I was anonymous. I don't use my proper name. I don't, I mean, use my proper voice. Every time when I'm trying to do an interview, I have to put like, I mean, sort of materials, I mean, on top of my mouth just to change the tone of my voice. But again, I've been, you know, they notice out that there's only a handful of people who can speak fluent English in that center. So I was one of them. I've been, you know, they pointed at me, but there's no proof, legitimate proof that they can say it was you. The voice is not like my voice. What happened with Amnesty, I worked with Amnesty Australia. I mean, that was a regional office. I worked with them for quite a lot. I mean, first my encounter was in 2015 when we had that, I mean, a campaign called Let Them Stay. So that campaign is based on, I mean, a family that flown from, I mean, a pregnant woman flown from Nauru to Australia. She gave a birth. And then on the first week of her birth, they want to send her back to Nauru, where there is a zero medical treatment exists on that island. So there is a risky that she may lose her baby on the way back to Nauru. So they start the campaign, and so they approached me and they asked me, "Do you want to be part of that campaign?" And then, as I was like someone who's outspoken in Manus, I took the lead and I start, you know, sharing my voice with them. Then end up 2016, I got in touch with Amnesty New Zealand. I mean, we worked also quite a bit to, I mean, to encourage the New Zealand government to approach Australia to take people from Australia, because basically they have an agreement. I mean, New Zealand take 150 refugees from Australia every year. But 2013, when the Liberal government in Australia won the election, they stopped it. Then we end up in limbo. So New Zealand was, I mean, Amnesty New Zealand working so hard to promote this deal to ask the New Zealand government to approach. So then again, I took the face to be in front of Amnesty. And last but not least, Amnesty UK, led by Kate, I mean, they flew all the way to Australia, from Australia on 2017, end of 2017. I had the privilege to meet Kate when she came to, I mean, Manus Island. And that was the woman, I think, that was the moment when I was, I mean, met them like in person. And then from there, we start walking and walking, we never stop. And until I got to a point that, like I came to Switzerland, and then I found out that the major role that they have played in my, you know, my movement from Manus Island to Switzerland. And then on top of that as well, we are still on the same platform. We're working together and to promote, I think, the right and protect, you know, the freedoms of movement, and especially for the refugees and migrants.
Yeah, I'm very happy that we are still active together up until today and even further. And that's actually what the last question that we're gonna answer is about. It's a question asked by Shireen, and it's about activism, basically. And she asks that how can we prevent other countries outsourcing accommodation of asylum seekers to third countries outside the EU? And as an example, she gives Denmark. But just, I think we can rephrase the question in a very simple way, and it's addressed to both Maria and Aziz. What can we as individuals do, and what can we do as a movement?
Maria, you want to go first, or?
I don't mind, whatever you prefer. Okay, so I think that one important thing is that all of us have a role to play, and all of us can do something. So I think that the activism, you know, is connected to raising your voice, bear witness. And in every country in Europe, I mean, there are refugees and migrants that are our neighbors that go, you know, that have kids, go to schools. There are also refugees and migrants that are in detention centers that are trying to access protection. So it's about asking actually what I can do. And depending on, you know, who you are, your availability, you know, if you're a teacher, if you are, I don't know, like if you have other profession, there are things that we all can do. But I think it's very, very important that, you know, in the work we do, we support refugee and migrant-led organizations, and you know, we offer them like the space. Amnesty can, you know, sometimes have the space or relationships with governments, or you know, the power to connect with the media. And I think it's very important that we generate this power as well, because refugees and migrants' voices in Europe don't count. They don't vote. Many of them don't vote, so politicians don't listen to them. So I think whatever we do, we just need to, you know, try to support, you know, refugees and migrants and those organizations that are led by them. And I also wanted to emphasize that, as Aziz explained, in the case of Canada, there are countries where individuals and communities can actually, you know, push governments and offer themselves, you know, like kind of community sponsorship. And this is very, very important because, you know, individuals and communities can sponsor individuals, but also they create this mass of people that will defend refugee rights whenever these rights are attacked. So even if sometimes we feel, oh, the numbers are not, you know, high enough, this is a long-term, you know, change when, you know, individuals, communities really engage in the welcoming and organize themselves to raise funds and to sponsor individuals that need protection. So yeah, I leave this here.
Well, I pretty much agree with what exactly Maria has said, and all. If I can add only, I mean, I can only add like two, I mean, sentences. Yes, I mean, it's true that being activists, it's something. I mean, it's one of the things that it's a tireless work. I mean, it's a tireless work. It needs a lot of energy, and sometimes I'm sure that some of you here, like in this, I mean, event today, they got to a point that they just want to give up. I mean, that's the role of activism, but we don't give up. I mean, the moment you give up, it's the moment that you have just sort of walk away from your own responsibility. And again, I mean, only repeating what Maria said, each one of us has a responsibility. Whether if you are an activist or if you are not an activist, you have a responsibility. I mean, for the activism, I mean, for all the activists out there, I think we have many ways to, I mean, to describe ourselves, or we can get even attention toward a specific case or a major case. First of all, we can, I mean, organize a protest. And in that protest, we have to put our slogan. In our slogan, we hold like very simple things, our demands. And that, you know, every protest today in Europe, it counts. Every protest in Europe today, it's count, because I mean, politicians, or like, let's say oppositions who are looking for a chances or loop to hit their opponent, they always target that protest. They come to the protest, they speak, and then they get a, I mean, appearance. And that protest will, I mean, will produce something, a very positive outcomes. On top of that, we also have a, I mean, something called a space. I think what I mean by space today, I mean, what Maria said, the refugees and migrants don't have a right to vote. So the politicians don't get to face them when it comes to like the bullet point. I mean, at the ballot paper. What can we do to get those people to come to the ballot paper? I mean, we need to create a space, a platform where we can give them a chance to explain themselves, because we have, I mean, today we are living in a world that it consists of three people, different people. We have a people who believe whatever the government say, they say yes, thumbs up. We have one group of people who are, I mean, they know the situation and they understand the situation because it's part of their background. And then we have one middle group, which is undecidable group. And I think for us in activism, I think who are we gonna target? We are not gonna target those one who believe on the government, what the government say. We're gonna target the one who are silent in the middle. To wake them up, we need to create like a space like this one, and meeting groups. Even if 10 people, that 10 people can share the message to a 30 to 60, 6 to 100, and the number will just go up. So our role and responsibility, it's to share the message. For me as an individual, you see me today, I mean, I think many of you will ask this question. You are in Switzerland right now, one of the best countries. Why didn't you just give up and walk away from it? But you can. I cannot, because I haven't thought about it, but I cannot, because I'm wearing a suit, and this suit, it's gonna be with me as long as I'm still alive. I'm gonna keep talking. The only moment I'm not gonna talk is like the moment when I left this world. So, which is, I believe deep inside me that I have a responsibility. So again, to connect all the dots together, let's keep playing our roles. I mean, it's gonna be tired, it's just gonna take the hell out of us. But at certain point, we will claim a victory. I mean, that's all I believe. At certain point, we will claim a victory.
Those are words to live by. I really like it. Fabienne, do you have something more to add, or?
Well, there's some more questions left, but I think time-wise, it's good if we go on. And I suggest that I share the questions that are still left with the speakers in an email.
Okay.
Is that okay?
For me, it's okay. I hope our listeners are okay with that as well. I just want to say one more time that we as people can do something. That as he says, you have to choose. You can choose to raise your voice for those who cannot raise their voices, and for those that are fortunate enough to be able to protest, to sensibilize the public, to raise awareness, to use the space they have because the government is okay enough for this. Then I think for me it's almost like an obligation to be an activist if you can and if you have space for that. On the 20th of June, this is World Refugee Day. This is this Sunday, and many activists from Amnesty and other organizations will be on the streets and take action to raise awareness and to have impact. Maybe yourself will be on the streets and host an event. Who knows? You can also act like now by signing our petition for El Hiblu. Maybe it's not so easy to understand what El Hiblu means, so I will just sum it up. El Hiblu is the name of a ship, actually. And in March 2019, 3 African teenagers, aged 15, 16, and 19, boarded a crowded rubber boat fleeing Libya. They were not alone on this boat. There were 108, and they were rescued by a cargo ship named El Hiblu. The captains has normally legal duty to help those in dangers and take them to safe destinations. And Libya is actually not a safe destination. As Maria said repeatedly, refugees and migrants face there like arbitrary detention, torture, rape, exploitation. This is not a safe place to go. So the people on the boat, when they saw that the boat are going to turn back and bring them back to Libya, they were starting to shout and scream and say, no, we don't want to go to Libya. We prefer to die. And a 15-year-old boy, the only one basically that can speak English on the boat, said, the captain go to him and said, what can I do? What can I do to calm them down? And the boy replied, just don't take us to Libya. That's not a good idea. So the ship turned around and set off to Malta. And now the 3 young guys would basically just helped the other migrants to go to Malta, were taken as they was accused of hijacking the boat. And when the Maltese army stormed the ship, the 3 young were disembarked in handcuffs, despite the police testifying that the crew were in control, nobody was hurt and nothing was damaged. But the youth are the 3 guys now are seen many as heroes, but they are facing like life in prison charges. And we can now do something, just signing petitions from Switzerland and from all over the world to act. And Amnesty International has in Switzerland a network, on action network called Asyl and Migration, is the migration. And if you are not a member yet, you can join. And there is more online meeting to come. Please go check out our website. Amnesty's English speaking group from Geneva has 2 more webinars online coming up on the 22nd and 28th of June this month. So, and you can still sign up for this. And I know this is a lot of information, but I will send you all a follow-up email with all this information inside. I want to thank you, everybody that has been with us tonight, for spending this evening with us. I will give a special thanks to Fabienne and everyone at Amnesty that made tonight possible. A huge thank you to our interpreters. This is Lucas, Michael, Isabel Vidal, and Isabel Brüche. Thank you very, very, very much. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you, Aziz and Maria, for sharing with us. I'd like to give you the floor, actually, for the final words of the meeting, because they don't belong to me, they belong to you. I close this up now for me. Thank you, everybody, and have a great night.
Well, I can just say that it was really a pleasure and an honor to be with you, and particularly also with Aziz. And please keep up the good fight, because we need you. We need you to change this policy. We need to, free El Hiblu 3. We need to keep these 3 boys safe, and yeah, and we need to fight for justice for them. But please, every action counts. So we need you to keep your good fight and stay strong.
Well, thank you very much. It's such a, a great honor and privilege again, once again, to be part of this campaign. And I think, you don't know how much, I'm excited that at least I am able to, to let everyone knows what happened in Manaus, and not only about Aziz, but this is the reality about, offshore detention center in general. And then on top of that as well, Maria, in the case of Hiblu, I think it's a very important case. And each signature can make a difference. So I can only say that I can invite you all just to, it will only take, 3 minutes of your time to, or like 2 minutes of your time to do the signature. So let's do our best to get these 3 boys to a safety place, and also as well as to all others who are really, their lives is in stake or in danger. And last but not least, also, I hope to see you on Sunday, especially. I don't know, if you are in Geneva, so we may, meet somewhere in one of the protests. But if you are in Bern, I can only send my voice and my my thumbs up to all of you guys in Bern, Zurich, Basel, and all other, the cantons in Switzerland. Thank you very much.
If you guys want to unmute and say goodbye to Aziz and Maria, please do so. Thank you so much. And I think we're going to end the meeting there.